Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Built to Scale. And today's guest is Kendall Pouland, and I am super excited to have you, Kendall. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Kendall is a systems and process and many other things operational expert for construction businesses, but I want you to be able to tell the audience so much more about what you do and who you are, Kendall. So tell us a little bit about yourself personally. Tell us about what you focus on in your consulting with construction clients.
I've been in the construction industry for over 20 years. I spent 18 years with a large general contractor in Houston, Texas. I'm an Aggie, so I've got a
Woo!
degree in construction
I'm not
science.
even Aggie, and I'll do it then. Sorry, we're both in Houston,
You
so
might have to do
hey,
push-ups now. I don't know if
yeah.
it'll.
Where's the
Um,
ring? I don't have the ring.
I am married to a superintendent, so guess what we talk about over dinner? But it's fun, and I have an 11-year-old daughter. I'm very active in my church. I'm a trustee, so I get to do a little bit of construction-y kind of stuff there too. And then on the side, in addition to Build Better Ways, I'm a adjunct lecturer at Texas A&M, teaching scheduling in the construction science department. So I got a couple things going on.
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah, it sounds like you need some flexibility with all that going on. So the beauties of owning our own business, right? That doesn't mean we work any less.
I
It
don't know
just
where the flexibility is, but I'm sure
yeah,
it's supposed to be somewhere.
yeah. It's summer on the weekend, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So so yeah, tell us more about your business, Build Better Ways, that let the audience kind of know what all you do and what you specialize in.
I started the company in January of 2022. So we're over 4 years now, which feels like a nice milestone. My goal is to help builders to execute great projects every time. So to build in some systems and consistency and training, so the team knows what they're doing and they're doing everything the right way. So we do standard operating procedures for teams. Because I've got a long background in construction, I generally understand your processes pretty well. We do training, like scheduling and certain project management softwares. So that's really fun for me. I really enjoy doing that. We do tech. I call it optimization. So sometimes it's finding the right tech or implementing the right tech, but a lot of times you've got some good tools and you're just not using them all the way. And then implementing best practices along the way, what other people are doing and seeing.
Yeah, it's great for those visionary founders that want to go out and wrangle and start a business, and all of a sudden they grow it and they figure out, oh wait, like there's all these steps to actually execute all this, and I have a team now and all this stuff, right? So it's you provide a very necessary service. I we find so many of our clients, they're visionary founders that they could have gone and done it themselves. But once it comes to growing a team, actually building out the systems and the processes and how everything integrates together, it's not that they probably couldn't do it. It's that, my gosh, they want to kill themselves doing it, right?
Yes,
So
that is
yeah,
100% true. Yeah, that
yep,
is definitely my experience. I mean, you say the word standard operating procedures and they're like, I need to
yep,
go to sleep. This
yep.
Yeah, so so finding the right people to help you with that is probably important.
So real quick, I'm going to read a quote from your LinkedIn profile, and I had some questions about it just to provide context for our audience. It says, "We help construction teams build better ways to execute their work by implementing innovative solutions to their everyday challenges, because your organization will be its best when you're focused on your business core competencies." And I think, this concept of core competencies, like you find a lot of construction businesses where they truly do everything in house. Like, I mean, they do marketing in house. They do all their accounting and payroll in house because, and I get it that there's challenges. Like if they do public works and public jobs, they have certified payroll. Like they do a ton in house. Where do you find, where's your personal opinion of where do you find that business owners at construction businesses are struggling? Um, where do you find that they should focus on their core competencies? Like, what are those usually, and where are they spending time in things that they shouldn't be focused on?
Yeah, I think I find a lot of times there's just gaps. They're really good. There are certain people that are really good at operations, right? They're good at building things, and a lot of construction companies are family owned, right? And they're maybe passed down from generation, and so they've got some really good builders, um, and then everything else is just kind of thrown together, if at all. So because the way they're doing that, I think training is lacking everywhere I've ever seen. We'll do even technology surveys and ask about training, and they're like, it's on the job training, obviously. So that's a big gap. Consistency is a big gap. So the challenge with construction is a lot of times you're on different job sites all over the city or all over the country. And so, Joe doesn't know what Sam is doing because they've maybe never even met, and so it's really hard to be consistent, when you're barely even in the same room half the time. So I think those are kind of a couple of the big things that I see lacking, at companies, and usually the leader knows, right? They know that those problems exist, but just the typical builder is like, "Can we just go out and build some stuff?"
I guess I'm interested because I hope I don't make an overassumption. I hope I don't offend anybody in this. 100% there are opportunities for differentiation and construction in the areas in which you specialize, what you build, little nuances of expertise that you bring to the table. But there's a lot, and I don't mean to overassume, right? Like everybody needs to figure out scheduling. Like everybody needs to figure out good project management. Um, what do you believe, like, what causes the challenges in executing well in those things?
I think we're very busy. I think people are working really hard, and we're constantly I call it firefighting and babysitting. When you're on a job site, there's just a lot of moving parts, and it can't all be fixed. And so, um, they're doing their best to get everything done, but sometimes it's just not at the level that it needs to be because they've got 7 different foremen standing in line at their door, missing information, or, they have some issues that they can't get to. And so you mentioned scheduling, they're like, I put together a schedule, so here's the plan. Sometimes they just don't understand all the fundamentals behind that. It's just like, oh, we'll do that on Wednesday. And there's a whole lot more to it than just, what day do you plan on starting whatever given task. And so they're doing enough to get by because there's so much that has to get done.
I'd love to go down this rabbit trail further because this is just so interesting to me of even just from a mindset perspective of what people are faced with as they try to grow a business, right? That like I've seen a lot of, especially general contractors that some of them start their business. They were originally project managers and they were super successful, right? I mean, most of them, if I could be transparent, like they said, man, I'm doing such a good job. I feel underpaid. I'm just going to go out on my own. I mean, that's what I've heard a lot from several of our clients is like, yeah, like I decided to go start my own because I felt like, I wasn't, compensated for how good of work I was doing. And then, but they do hit a wall or they hit a ceiling, right? Of, yeah, how do I get my team to execute in the way that I would have executed this, right? That I would have done it this way, and my team is struggling doing it in the way that I would have done it. And that seems to. Do you? Let me ask first. Do you find that that's a common thing that some of the clients you're saying are that you're working with?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's this tribal knowledge, right? When you do that, it's like, well, I know how to build a really actually had this conversation yesterday with somebody that, you know, a great project manager started a company. It's literally happened yesterday. Um, and as people on board, right, person A does it pretty much the same as the founder, but then it moves on to person B and you lose a little bit, and then person C. And it's like at some point, I don't even know how people are doing things because it has had so many iterations over the generations, or the different people coming on board that it's like, this is not exactly how I was hoping everything would get executed.
What do you because I know, like, even and you and I are both business owners, I'm sure that it's like, man, we had a skill set that we were involved in things, and we went and out and started businesses because we're like, well, we don't wanna be doing those things anymore, right? We're like, "Yeah, we could do those things, and we could do them well. It's not what we wanna be doing. We wanna be doing something else, running a business," and, um but there's this dichotomy, right, of it's like, eh, you're not quite out of that yet, right? That it's like you still have a team to manage of setting expectations. And in regards to some of the systems implementation, like, how much would you say still needs to be expected of owners in regards to communication, follow through? Because most of them, I gotta assume, are wanting to say like, I don't want to be involved in scheduling. Like, please keep me out of it at all costs. At the same time, I know there's this balance of good leadership means sometimes you do have to step in and you have to show leadership in regards to like this is how we get things done well, that it's not do as I say, it's do as I do to some degree. And how do you face that challenge? Or I should ask, do you find that challenge and how do you face it if you do?
Yeah, I mean, more often than not, I'm trying to get the leader out. They're the bottleneck more often than anything else, is what I find. I see a lot of, presidents, COOs that are, for example, they're still signing every change order or they're signing every check or they're approving, and it's like, why? I'm like, well, I know what to look for. Okay, well, let's write that down, give that to somebody else. And change orders is always a fun example because a sub change order is coming from an owner change order. So if the owner is paying for it and you're then just moving the money to the sub and you're making your normal margin, hey, Mr. Owner, it's good. Right? Trust your project manager. And so we just got to set those, boundaries to say, this is when I can get out of the business. I think I have that conversation a lot more is you've got to make sure you're just not going to have time to do the schedule on every project, like you mentioned, right? And so I think that's a big part of it is making sure you're not the bottleneck because that's really frustrating and that's really common. Um, but another issue I see is I want the leader to be coming to the job site to visit people. They've gotta get out of the office, and so I think the answer to your question is people wanna feel supported. They don't need you to do the schedule. Maybe you need to give them some resources to be better at that or whatever, but they wanna feel supported. I have run jobs, big jobs, where I never saw the operations manager. And, part of it is like, "Hey, thanks for trusting me. I know that's why, he didn't show up. So I appreciate the trust, but I wanna show off the job too." So it's a great leadership hack.
I think what you said that honestly, yeah, I'm pretty bold when I get on these podcasts and it's just kind of is what it is. But I almost call it like even amongst our team, I call it like the fallacy of the project manager becoming an owner. That like what made you really good as a project manager? You controlled crap, right? Like you controlled the costs and you beat budget, and like you were on point. Like you had precision in every point, and then you go and you become a business owner and granted, I mean, this is an over assumption what I'm saying, right? That, I'm not saying that a project manager involves just like you're a grumpy guy that, or gal that just is sitting there bashing every invoice and like, making sure that you squeeze out every dime you can and that it's just precision. And if people don't operate, everything's on fire. But I hope you can get what I'm saying is like the skill set of controlling a project, there's an evolution to then going and leading a company, right? And a different skill set involved. And I think I've seen more of what you've seen that the owners themselves are true bottlenecks that like they still want to be have an oversight and see what's going on. And they kind of make them like it's almost difficult for team members to know what are my limits as to before I'm going to get my hand slapped here, that I need to run this, but I feel like the boss is just watching over my back. And because like that's what they did their whole career. And then all of a sudden they're a business owner and like there has to be this mental change in regards to where they go. Um, what do you find is successful? Cause is it just systems? Cause I have seen this so much and this is something that rattles my brain as to how to help some of these owners evolve in that, right? Of feeling comfortable and trusting that, yeah, a mistake's going to happen. You have to be okay with your team learning from the mistake and that you don't have to be the bottleneck and insert yourself in so much and have this control. And I'm sure that you've probably even experienced the owners say that they want to let all that go. Actually, letting that go is another story, right? What have you found that is kind of the shift that's successful for some of these guys or gals that what helps them break that?
So I've got a few things that I think are important. One is making sure the expectations are really clear and what does success look like? And if that is not written down, it's one thing to tell somebody when they get hired on or to put it in their job description. That is not gonna work. There needs to be something that we're looking at, like in our one-on-ones, your quarterly or whatever performance review kind of things. But it needs to be written down. What does success look like for all the things that you do? Not just, "Hey, to be a good project manager, XYZ," but, these are the 40 different things that we expect of you and exactly what good, great looks like. That's not fair to expect people to know that, for everything, and so that's a to me, that's a really big part of it. Um, if so to me, that's systems, but also technology. So if everybody's got some tools, but you should in this day and age, you should have tools where people are putting information in a technology that then as the leader, all you're looking at is the high level stuff, right? And so you just wanna see, where are the 3 jobs this month that, we're losing margin or that we're overdue on, submittals and RFIs. And that's where and then you're just stepping in where you need to step in. Yeah, I do think systems can literally fix a lot of the problems you're talking about to get the leader to stop being the bottleneck. So if we're allowing them to assign change orders without the owner now, okay, so you get a quick summary of, whatever change orders went out the door. What were the top 5 biggest ones? Whatever's really making you nervous, you should have in this day and age, you should have the data where you don't have to go, dive in and spend 4 hours with the PM trying to understand the health of the project. We'll do internal project health reports, will be a recommendation for a lot of our clients, and that, maybe you have one meeting and you can cover all the jobs in one quick meeting because it's just the information that matters.
I'm interested to hear your take because, yeah, I mean, implementing great systems that, do enable that owner to just have the visibility and know where to step in at critical points in time is a key aspect to it. I I I also know, like, yeah, a lot of owners love the thought of systems. At the same time, even I've had team members that go and write a 20-page SOP, and it's like, yeah, ain't nobody gonna read this. Like, and if people had to follow every step of this, my gosh, this is gonna be so bureaucratic. And like, right? I mean, because organizations, especially in their life cycle, like you got to still operate efficiently and quickly without becoming overburdened by systems for the sake of systems. Like sometimes a new client comes up and they want something particular and it's a great client opportunity. And it's like, you're going to have to pivot a little bit here. Like you might have to adjust. And so the system that has been developed for every other client, like you might have to make some tweaks to it. Right. And how do you like, what would you suggest is the right, how do you balance that to where you have the right level of systems without having over, I don't even know the right word for it, but like too much bureaucracy?
Yeah. No, I don't disagree at all. But I also will say I think sometimes having those steps and those guardrails and that detail can sometimes make life easier on people, right? If file naming is a good example, like how many of us have files that you can't find because somebody else put it in a different folder and blah, blah, blah. And so that kind of stuff, if we can just tell them, hey, every time you do this type of document, this is exactly where it goes and how it should be named. That may sound very bureaucratic and, a little too detailed, but also it's like, now I don't have to think about it. Like, I don't have to go search other folders and see what other people are doing. So to some degree, I think it actually is helpful. Um, but I do absolutely agree with you that we have to be flexible on things. Um, and so you don't have to go down to the do you put an underscore or do you put a period, on some of these, the file naming example, as long as it's enough to where if somebody wins the lottery tomorrow, we can not hit by a bus, but wins the lottery, we can go find the stuff and understand where they're at and see what they're trying to do. Um, and then but I think so yes, a 2 20-page document. It's going to be real tough to read. So my typical recommendation, I also feel like once you build SOPs, an owner's biggest fear should be that you put all this investment and time in building a playbook and nobody's ever looked at it again. That's a real thing. So make sure we're training people on a regular basis, like every month, teach one of your SOPs to everybody. And so sure, everybody knows generally how to do scheduling or change orders. But, every year they get a refresher of the SOP. I love that if you have somebody else train, like an actual user, "Hey, Mason, today's your turn. You're gonna teach scheduling. I know you're a good scheduler, or PM with scheduling, so just go you're gonna teach everybody else." And that makes it not so painful, but also a lot more repetitive.
Say a construction business owner comes to you, because I think in my experience, sometimes too, identifying where the system is needed, like you could think it's in one area, but it could be in a totally different area that's flowing downstream, right? That it's like, yeah, we could go fix that. It's for example, I mean, it seems so small, but we have one client that they're super frustrated with. They have a online kind of credit card expense management tool, and for the sake of it, I they feel like they're frustrated with the tool, but I can tell like, okay, but you have people that aren't submitting their receipts on time, and like that's the problem we need to go fix. Is like, what's the process as to which people should file their receipts, and what are we going to do if they don't file their receipts, right? And I that's just a very small example, but I hope you get what I mean. Like assessing where do we spend our time here? Like what's the real problem to fix? And um, how do you go about starting with that? Because I'm sure that sometimes some business owners have an idea as to like, this seems broken over here, but in your gut, you're like, no, 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 that's not the problem. It's over there. Like, how do you go about even trying to assess and where to start and what you do?
Yeah. So, we start off with a project kickoff meeting, like most people. But I have the list of most of the general processes that a construction business is going to do. Right? We're no offense, but you aren't that different from
Yep.
from your
No, no, no. I
competitors,
get it. Yeah. No.
right? And so we talk through every typical process, and I'm listening, and they're talking about kind of high level, but what does that process look like? And how big of a pain point do you think it is, to your point? Like, maybe you're not right, but let's start with that. And then you got to think about how often is it happening? What's the frequency? How many different people are doing it? And if it's once a year, then or if it's once a day, or then that's a big difference. Um, and what is the real risk? And so we after going through that list, we can kind of prioritize what it sounds like the biggest pain points are. We always end up shifting here and there. Um, but I will tell you, I mean, one of the first ones we always end up starting with is project startup. Project startup, change management, project closeout, and scheduling are probably the top 4 almost everywhere because they all have so much impact on the job or on the next job, right? Project closeout, you gotta get it right because you want that client to come back or you want them to recommend you. And so I think those are the things we typically look for, frequency and impact on the business.
One of the things too, so like you go about developing these systems, and we talked about that. Like I've seen some people before create 20-page SOPs that would never get read by anybody, right? And they'll just go collect dust. And kind of like you said too, you mentioned some ways of making sure that people utilize SOPs. Like, what are your suggestions? I mean, you brought up the fact that, hey, do a monthly training to make sure that everybody revisits it often, and that, it's revisited and it's fresh in people's minds. But like, what are your suggestions to really write and or create an effective SOP? And then do you have any additional suggestions beyond the monthly training to make sure that this is fully implemented and it moves forward? Because there's a lot of people that could go write something and then it just collects dust and nothing happens after that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got plenty more ideas than just that one. So as far as writing it, um I don't necessarily buy into just having the core process, like the top 5 steps. That's kind of a traction thing. I do think it needs to be a little bit more detailed than that. But if we're talking about the 20-page document, that's probably your click by click with screenshots kind of thing. To me, that's a supplemental material to the SOP. That's a training guide, and that's great, and that's if you're onboarding or if you're giving people, different, moving them into a different position, they need a detailed training guide. Those things also change, right? Technology is changing every day. So, to me, that's a supplemental document, but the SOP itself should be all the basic steps, who's responsible, and when it needs to be done by, and what success looks like. Um, and then everything else you kinda add in. So some other ideas for, making sure that we're constantly keeping these at the forefront, um, if you have I call it a playbook, right? Your SOP manual is a playbook for your company. Put things in it like a PTO request form. So the only way you can get to the PTO request form is if you go to the playbook. The only way that you can see the holiday schedule for 2027 is if you go to the playbook. And then even templates, like if let's say you've got an Excel log for something, if you have too many, that's another issue. But if you have an Excel log for something, the only place you can go get it, in the current version is it's always in the playbook. It's not in a random folder somewhere. And so I think that's some ways, if you have a newsletter or something like that, a bulletin that you send out, monthly to your team internally, have a little spot for SOP of the month, hey, as a reminder, few reports are due on the 15th of every month, right? And I'm gonna call it a memo, but let's say it makes me sound much older than I am. But let's say you're sending an email to the company about a change that we made, right? We got a new invoice approval, software or workflow. We made some changes to invoice approval. Don't send them all the instructions in an email. Send them a sentence and a link to the playbook. And so that playbook should become part of your vocabulary. And it kind of became a joke that I was one of those people that everybody came to with questions. And it kind of became a joke because at some point my answer is, did you check the playbook? And they're like, "Oh, I knew you were going to say that."
Yep. Fair enough. I really love, I mean, that was actually like, that was so tactical because I mean, several of these of like motivating people to go back to it, like the PTO, the holiday requests, like put other reasons that would be so super important to them to go enter that thing that outside of just reading the SOP for, that process, like what else are they going to go in there for that they would be forced to go in there? I love that. I think that you made a critical distinction, though, that I think a lot of people struggle with is the SOP in regards to the general overview of the steps versus the technical how to guide. And I think a lot of people just start with the technical how to guide. And that's always a challenge because, like you said, technology is moving so fast that the application that you're doing that technical part to, it could be wiped out, in a few weeks, especially with AI and stuff. And so, but if the SOP is maintained, that's a lot smaller and more summarized as to the key core stuff here, then you can go fix the technical stuff, but at least people generally understand the general overview. And I never thought about that way. So I love that you put it into that format that's such a critical distinction. I feel like that people would underestimate. So that's good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
So I took notes for my business, so I'm getting a free lecture here that, well, thank A&M. I'll pay my tuition fees to A&M for all this.
All
So
right. All right.
yeah,
All right.
fair enough. um, yeah, I love this stuff. So kind of on that point a little bit, because I mean, even it's disrupting our business. Disruption may be, that sounds like such a negative word. I try to look at it from an opportunistic standpoint that um, AI is AI is a big thing. And I think a lot of companies, they know it's supposed to be a big thing. They may not be seeing exactly how it could be a big thing in their business today. I think everybody's trying to answer those questions is the thing. Like what what is actually a good use case here? What can I trust? Where can I actually get good ROI? What are you seeing? Because I mean, just in what you do, I have to figure that AI is making headway to help, systemize and streamline things, for your clients ultimately. Like what would you suggest as to some of the areas that some of these companies can optimize with AI?
Yeah, and I'm still learning with all of us, right? And I'm testing it out myself. I'm using it in my business so that I can help come up with all of that. And I've partnered with somebody who only does AI. Now I'm going to make a distinction. There's AI and there's automation, and I think you need both. And people will say everything is AI, and then you listen to it, and it's like, well, that's really automation. And so I think it's a marriage that you need to have both. But a use case, we've been talking about most recently is, monthly or no, weekly client reports, right? So a lot of contractors, not all of them, but a lot of contractors send a end of the week report to the client of what they did, what's coming up, and some pictures, right? If you are doing that in a Word document, job by job, PM by PM, or even project administrator by project administrator, maybe there's a lot better way with a combination of AI and automation to go pull those 5 bullet points and 4 pieces of data and 6 pictures, right? There's certainly AI tools built for certain things. Estimating is seems to be by far the first one that's coming out with a lot of use cases, that actual tools that are built to do that. We've got a whole entire page long laundry list of use cases for AI, and we don't build it out. I'm partnering with somebody else to help do that. So we're going to help figure out what is the right process. The first thing you've got to do, I'm sure you already know this, Mason, is you've got to have good data integrity. All right. Anybody will tell you that we can go automate and build some AI tools, but if the information we need, like the email address of who it's supposed to be sent to, isn't in the data set, AI can only do so much, y'all, just not gonna work. And so that should definitely be the first step is data integrity, making sure people are putting everything in the software that they're supposed to be putting in. Um, what I would recommend to people is dream really big. Like, in a perfect world, if I didn't have to do X, Y, and Z, or if I could dream really big, because I think in this current age, there's a good chance it's doable.
I agree. I mean, I get that, like, particularly Brady CFO, our business is different than, with some of these construction operators. But I mean, like just a month ago, we started using a new tool, and I've been a laggard on AI in regards to just adoption, acceptance, kind of the visioning of it. But we got a financial analysis tool that we took PDFs and imported it in without having to manually put things in Excel. I witnessed a financial model of just the depth of the financial model that would have literally taken one of our analysts 2 weeks to build. With the right prompts, he was able to build it in 2 days, and he's still optimizing the prompts to where it may be able to be done in a day or less. And I mean, we're talking about an 80 to 90% reduction in total time to complete a task well. And I just all of a sudden I saw that and I understood the time, and it blew my mind. And I mean, it's making us have to completely rethink, like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do regarding this? Because this is pretty game changing that I mean, we've definitely made the decision we're not going to hire an additional financial analyst, right? Like we're going to have to retool and refit the job description of our current analyst. And we're going to get, more output, right? We're going to be able to get more volume load because they won't have to be focused in so few models, but they can do more. But we're going to have to retool what their positions are going to look like. And I guess that's the thing. Like, I can see that drastic that it's actually making a hiring change and a hiring decision. I think that we underestimate, and I guess I'm just making a call out to any listener here that is a construction business owner. Like, I was skeptical, and it came like it smacked me right in the face. And I think that we would be surprised. I think many construction business owners would be surprised that what is actually possible today. They just haven't had the time to test everything. But if they can dream it, like you said, there's probably already somebody trying to build it, and it may be just 6 months out till it's ready for you. Like this stuff is coming so fast, and so I'm just encouraging people to really spend some time figuring out AI.
I agree. We've kind of surveyed a lot of our clients, and most of them are interested and curious, and almost none of them have done anything besides ask ChatGPT to write a really good email. And so if you're doing an RFP response, right, and you've got, and this is just kind of, again, dreaming big idea. I know I need 3 resumes from my PM, my super, and my product executive. I need you to go pull those resumes and put them in the RFP response. We're building a education building, so go find the most recent education buildings that are about this dollar range. Put those in the RFP response, and 5 other things that go into that packet, and you've got an assistant marketing person doing it. Stop,
Yeah. No,
right?
100%.
Those
Yeah.
files live somewhere that it's absolutely doable with AI, and you just gotta find the right people to help you do it. But yeah, it took me and my partner an hour to build out a really cool client update report from data that, a team had in their systems.
And it's not even that people have to be, data coders out there or anything. Like, there's just so many out of the box solutions that, like, I really, even in Houston, I wanted to go to an event that they were having. I was going to take my girls, but it's an app called Lovable that you can build websites off of it, but you can also build like where you would do spreadsheet displays like in a summarized format. So if you wanted to create client portals to give status updates, like you can do a really well designed one that would make you look really professional versus just passing across a spreadsheet, but like a portal design basically. And it can build in an hour. Like, and it's just wild,
In
and
English, right? You
yeah,
type it the way you talk, and in fact, a lot of the AI people I watch on YouTube or LinkedIn, when they're building stuff, they're not typing anything, and they talk and they make mistakes, and they say, and they say, "Oh, no, wait," instead of that, that's fine.
yeah, I think there's a lot to come, and I think it'll be really interesting how you build your business of just that reality that I got to figure that AI is going to be a big part of it. Is to how do we make these systems with AI empowering it, right? And it's just going to be a big evolution.
Well, and as people are recruiting this, current generation coming out of college, you are going to real quick have to think the other way around, that is, okay, these kids are only using AI, and it can be a problem, right? So you also, whether you want to or not, they are going to come to you, and they're going to do everything in ChatGPT unless you tell them otherwise. I've told this story a couple times, but at school, we were talking about productivity, and you're calculating schedules, and so I'm like, "Here's a wall, here's the size of the wall, here's the size of a brick. How long will it take? Here's the productivity factor. How much time will it take to build this wall?" Those suckers just put it in ChatGPT. I was like, "This is a simple arithmetic problem." Like, and so I think we have to be prepared that even if your current workforce is AI laggards, if you're gonna be recruiting, that's just not gonna be the case.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting challenge because kind of, my final question I wanted to ask you is about talent optimization, but that reality I think is a very true one that um, so much of the current workforce is learning and trying to be curious about AI, but the next generation is going to be so AI forward. But to your point, will they understand the basics? And I mean, I have team members, I have assistants that like I love when they're progressive with it, that like our social media and all of our posts and everything. I have a gal that uses AI and everything. And I say, as long as you do it well to where it's contextual and it doesn't feel like AI, great. Like use it as a tool to supplement, just don't have it do everything. But she's very I never had to ask her. She just does it, right? And I think that's the thing is that the next gen is going to come in where they're like, don't limit me. Like that I use all these tools like, and there's an opportunity for them to be more productive. But like you said, that my gosh, like, yeah, but if they don't have the basics down, they could just be feeding something into that, that chat or that Gemini or the Claude or whatever that is just going to totally blow you up. Right. So, yeah, yeah. They still have to understand the basics. And that'll be an interesting thing to manage. Because even, my wife and I and you have, 11-year-old daughter you mentioned of just, um, you want them to get that classical education, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but you have to learn AI because it's going to be a standard requirement as much as knowing Microsoft Word and Excel, So yeah, yeah, yep, yep. Um, Final kind of topic I'd love to touch base with you on because you help in a lot of these different systems regarding scheduling, technology adoption. But you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, you help with talent optimization strategies too, right? And this is where I've seen a lot of our clients struggle. That idea is to overall, kind of stepping in that. How do we lead and build a culture, and how do we create a workplace that people really want to come into and that we're an optimized employer and that we build a brand that people really want to join and all of these things, right? But for a lot of these guys or gals that they're stepping in and they never had to think about this stuff before. And I think sometimes systems or thinking about how do we do a better talent optimization or hiring strategy, et cetera, it can almost feel overwhelming. With some of this, it's like, whoa, like we got to do all this. And I know sometimes I've gotten into wanting to create systems and you think it's going to be a small task. And it's like, oh, you just uncovered something huge, right? So like, what would you say are the top 1 to 3 steps that an owner can take in regards to talent optimization, like building a talent optimization system? Like what could they take away today and say, okay, if I just started here, I'd be on a better track?
I'm not gonna say there's an easy button, AI can help, but this is the people side of your business. You hear people say that that's the most important thing in our company, but is it? Like, you need to put your money where your mouth is sometimes. Do you want your people to feel motivated when they come to work? Do you want them to know how to succeed? Do you want them to see a future at your company? Those are really important questions. And if your answer is yes, then you've got to do something, even if it's going to take a little bit of work. So, my recommendation, easy steps, take your job descriptions, probably have those just from hiring, and expand on them to not just say, all right, one of your job tasks is change order management or job billing management. Take it one step further and at least explain in a couple sentences what does great look like for that task? Not just you gotta do the task, but what does great look like? And do that for kinda each of the skills for each of your positions, or at least the positions where they're always trying to move up, right? And a project engineer wants to become a project executive, so show them what it looks like to do each of those skills really well. Um, and then for each of those tasks that they're responsible for, give them some kind of a resource that they can go to get better. And maybe it's if you go to Mason, he's the one that can teach you how to do that really well. If you need to put a person's name in there, that's fine. Or if you've got an SOP or if you've got an online training, even if it's a link to LinkedIn Learning, but some kind of a resource to say you've got to get better at this, or maybe it's just go to your mentor or your senior superintendent to learn how to do this thing. Um, and I constantly find construction companies that have no performance reviews of any kind whatsoever.
Got
Oh
it.
yeah, we did those back in the 1900s. So, um, start doing one-on-ones quarterly
Yep.
using this skills matrix. That's what I call what we're talking about. And just say, of all these are all the things that you need to be doing. This is what you're doing well and what you're not. It doesn't have to be a big ordeal and you can kind of use the same list every time. And then part of it is what have they not had experience with? So monthly financial reporting on projects is a good one and probably applicable to you guys. That an assistant PM never gets to see it or touch it or anything, right? And so they want to become a PM and they've never actually looked at the financials because somebody's holding it too close to their vest. Um, and so that matrix can help them go, I want to be a PM. What does that mean? I don't even know how to do these things because nobody's even showing me. I think I'm smart enough, but I got to learn.
I love how it's that quarterly take your job description that's been optimized. And I mean, again, use AI to optimize it, right? But just a quarterly, meeting and evaluate how they're doing against the current task, whether they're meeting great, and hey, what are the things that you could learn that you can evolve in, and just one quarter at a time, right? Like we're just talking about one quarter at a time, that evolution. And for most of these employees that don't even get any of that today, they would just love that. Like they'd love it. So
Even just the one-on-one time.
yeah, yeah, and I think, yeah, I mean, I think you've just broken down so simple that it's just taking that little bite, that just have a quarterly meeting, review their job description, optimize their job description a bit first, review it with them, and then identify where they have some skill gaps, and yeah, keep it moving, and just 1 month at a time ultimately. And it was good. Kendall, I so appreciate having you on the chat here. That several of your points there were just so practical that it's just like, yeah, like this should seem easy to take away. I know that, yeah, I don't want to make any assumptions, but just really appreciate your very tactical, real advice there. So appreciate having
Yeah.
you on.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm a GSD kind of person, so
Yes. Awesome. For all the EOS people, they should know what that means, right? So yes, yes, exactly. So awesome. Well, thank you, Kendall. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday, the weekend, and thank you everybody for listening in as well.
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right. Hi, everyone. So if you enjoyed today's episode and you found value, or it raised some questions for you about the next best steps for managing your finances in your construction business, please reach out to us at bradycfo.com. There's a contact page there where you can fill out, and that will come straight over to us. Either that, or you can personally find me on LinkedIn. My name is Mason Brady, and feel free to send me a message, and happy to chat and talk through anything you're facing today, and happy to provide some advice. So thank you all. Appreciate it. See you.